Today's conversation is titled Black Life in America. We will discuss from our standpoint some of the things that contribute to the condition in the black community and what we can do individually and collectively to improve it. I noticed that a lot of people, that try to influence like the vote, the black vote, and other things in the community, they refer to this thing called the black agenda. Now, I'm thinking that the black agenda is a list of expectations and demands, that the black community, or at least the people that have elevated themselves to the role of leaders in the black community, I think that it's a list of demands that they expect a politician to move and push forward for them. What if you had like a list of 3 things that you would like to see included on that black agenda? What would you say?
For me, the black agenda, the word agenda means something in the future towards moving forward. Some of those things I would like to see. I think black home ownership is way too low.
Okay.
For the part that we play in the economy, the amount of money that we spend. I would like us to get more serious about our finances as far as pulling that money together collectively, finding institutions where we can accrue some interest for the things that are good and healthy for our future collectively. The third thing is always going to be academics. Academics is always going to be high on my list.
All right.
Very high.
Yeah, those are all 3 things that I've seen listed on the black agenda. Any one that I've seen, is education and home ownership and things. Do you believe though that the government plays a role in, or do you think that it's a personal accountability that as far as education, yeah, you have to provide good, safe schools, but when it comes to home ownership or anything like that, do you think that it's the responsibility of government to put in place programs to help people get into home ownership? Or
I would like to think that would be the government's, underlying motive to make everybody a homeowner. That's beneficial to community. That's beneficial to a tax base. That's beneficial to getting the money that you need to resource for that community.
Yeah.
So they have a part, but I would like to see people take more of initiative in their own future.
Yeah, I think that's always been kind of an issue for me is, as a community, we do, and don't get me wrong. Like I said, I know a lot of people might take offense to some of the things I might say in this conversation today. So I'm just kind of putting it out there that, but I'm a person, I do believe that whether it's even with the education system in the black community, it is sad that, as a community, our children do fall further behind when it comes to their ability to learn and other things that could be tied to the education system. But I also feel that us as parents, we've been failing our children. There's a lot of us that we sit around, we're up partying half the night. Our kids can't get to sleep so that they can get up. And go to school and be productive in school. They're introduced to so many things. And don't get me wrong, I understand that there's, I'm talking about a small percentage of the people in the community, but what happens is you send these kids to schools that, where other kids are at. Those kids are also impacted and affected by what that child's parents are doing at home. So it doesn't, you can put the finest school, give all the resources, and everything. But if you don't have the support from the home, because I believe a child's first teacher is their parent. You know, and if they're not getting that support from home, those kids are going to bring all those things that they're dealing with at home into the classroom, which is going to be a problem for kids that are getting that support at home.
I agree with you. I can't argue with that at all. You know, I can say I've witnessed that, you know, that type of behavior, that scenario that you're talking about. Unfortunately, I've seen that with my own eyes in real time.
Yes.
I think one of the key things that you mentioned was parenting. Now, some of these kids might be in a situation where their parents might have a problem with drugs. You and I were fortunate enough that we had that problem. Our parents had that drug problem, or what we seen as a drug problem. And what I mean by that has nothing to do with being intoxicated. It's talk about being disciplined and parented. And what I mean by that, your parents drug their behind out of bed.
That's the drug you're talking about.
They drug your behind to school. They drug themselves to them PTA meetings, man. And when they got up there and they found out that, you know, that principal drug out that paperwork and you weren't doing what you were supposed to do, she drug your behind home and drug out that belt and drug you around that house, didn't she?
She sure did.
See, and it's going to take that type of passion. Now, I'm not advocating beating your kid, but there is something about stern discipline. There's more to that spare the rod, spoil the child than just the terminology.
Yeah, but part of the issue with the discipline, Steve, is so many people aren't disciplined themselves. How can you expect a parent that, you know, a person that's completely lost themselves to even know what proper and improper behavior is?
It takes a village. See, with the lack of fellowship, with the lack of us not reaching out, with me not coming and throwing my arm around a brother that's slightly younger than me in the neighborhood and saying, hey, man, there's a better way to do things. Now, maybe talking about his parenting style and talking about his child is not the way to create the bridge that is going to be needed, but we're going to have some dialogue. And maybe it starts out light. It's what you've heard me say before, man, about the older man and the youth. This is just like your neighbor, too. I've got to make a connection before I offer any type of correction. You've got to know I care about how you are today before how I can help you be better in the future. So I need to come with constructive comments and don't use the oxymoronic word of constructive criticism, because criticism doesn't construct. It usually blocks the mind. They're so worried about the criticism that it's hard to build or construct that person. So we have to pick out the good qualities of what's going on so we can have the tougher conversation with them.
Well,
does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, you know, but I also, you know, I do think a little bit of constructive criticism can be beneficial, though, you know. I mean, I'm not, you know, I think that, you know, it all depends on where it's coming from. And like you said a minute ago, you know, if you built the connection, you know, the people should have to be open for the correction. You know, sometimes people are just in a position, man, where hey, you know, they don't want their kids and people coming up behind them to make the same mistakes they made. You know, I have 3 sons and I have a daughter, but my 3 sons, you know, they have heard every type of correction and every type of, you know, criticism that a person can probably hear. But I think that all of them know that it's coming from a place where I just want them to be better.
Well, you sound like my grandfather now. You say, boy, I'm going to tell you behind up now because I love you, because everybody on that side of the door that's going to try to tell you behind up.
That's right.
Does not love you like I do.
Yeah.
And you need the discipline. Don't get me wrong. You need to have the constructive comment. But I don't want to tear anybody down, young or old, with their criticisms. I want to point out what your strengths are. Now I'm in a position where I can help you. And you know what your strengths are. Sometimes people don't know what their gift or strength is. And sometimes somebody from the outside can say, hey, I really admire you for this, and start helping fertilize and water and let that grow in them. See, if I get you stuck on your criticism, you're probably too close to the tree of criticism that you can't see the other opportunities that are there. So I don't want to beat you down. My job is here to always to build you up. Yeah, there's things you're going to have to change. You know, you can't do this if you want to accomplish this. So usually I use a vision, mission, and action items. What's your vision of yourself? Young, old, male, or female? How do you get to that vision? How do you make that vision come to fruition? You have to be on this mission. And you have to look at these action items. These action items go with this mission to make this vision come to life. Take your action items as taking your pulse every 3 or 4 months. Did I get these action items done? That puts me on this mission to make this vision come to fruition. It's no different within our communities, within our race, within our households, and with our children. How do you view yourself? And sometimes as parents and people in the community have to ask that question. What's your vision and how do we get there?
Yeah. You know, well, to me, it almost, now, and I agree with everything you just said there, but to me, it almost seems like we can't move forward because we're too busy looking for a scapegoat. Okay, we're looking for someone else to say, hey, the reason why I can't get this job, or the reason why, I don't qualify for this is because I'm gonna say the white man's holding me down, and I look at so many people, man, and I'm sitting there, thinking to myself that there's nobody that's holding you down. I mean, now if you're a black man in this country, I believe me, I know your path, just like my path, is definitely going to be much harder to success than a white counterpart of mine. There's no way that so I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not going to be tougher, but as black people, that's what we've dealt with. We know tough. We know hitting, the grit. We know what we have to do to get through the day, get through the year, get through, whatever it is that we're trying to, get to or get through to get to our objective. But the thing is, it seems like we're more interested in running to the past than to the future.
I would see some of that. I think sometimes if I'm understanding the dialogue appropriately, I think sometimes we can get caught up and, like you said, looking in the past and looking to cast blame on somebody. And I can only do that for so long. How long can I point at somebody else and not put my hands to work?
Yeah.
If somebody hasn't done anything for me for 400 years, man, why would I spend another year going there instead of trying to figure out how I can do it different? Because I think that would be this terminology of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting to get a different result, correct?
Correct.
So would we not be insane saying the same thing over and over again, watching the deterioration or destructions of our neighborhoods every 30, 40 years? See, we're going to have to do something different because this pattern isn't any good. This pattern expands what we want least.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we change the tide of that? And I think it's through the things that we have spoken of, at least the 3 things that we agreed about as far as agenda items: education, finances, and home ownership.
Yeah. Well, I think that until we get to a point where we at least respect each other, because you always hear this term when it on the news and other groups of people, they're always going back to this black on black crime. Have you ever noticed that in any other community, you never hear them refer to the race of the people? You never hear white on white crime. Why is it? I wonder why it is that when it comes to them referring to crime in black communities, that they have to stress black on black. I mean, have you ever wondered that?
Well, one of the things that I've heard is, if I call it black on black and I drive that point home, it's they don't love each other, so why should we?
That's right.
And I think it's just the wording. It's just like right now everybody says social distancing, when all we're doing is being physically distant. Because me and you talk on the phone now more than we ever have. So we're not socially distant by any means. We're only physically 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
So it's how we word things that takes on a different meaning, or starts to draw an ugly picture. It starts to sully the lens that is seen through. Now, if you go to certain areas, way out here, Orono, Minnetonka, some of these other places, the crime is going to be white on white. Why? Because only white folks live there. Now, if you magnify and put all your attention on the black community, of course, all the crime that you're going to see is going to be crimes committed by black people upon other black folks. And you know what, Jack? I bet you they have Chinese on Chinese crime too in China.
Yeah.
You know why?
Because that's who they're
with. Exactly.
You're gonna commit crimes against people that you're around. Because see, I always looked at crime as a socioeconomic issue more than a race issue. Because I think if I've traveled around this country. I've been a lot of places in this country, and you can go to the poorest trailer park, and you'll find that the same crimes that are committed at that trailer park are the same crimes committed in a city like Detroit or south side of Chicago.
Urban housing.
Yeah, and but somehow society has tied the crime, and it's not by accident that they use the term black on black crime, but they've tied this term crime to the black community. Instead of saying, hey, well, the reason why it might appear that crime is more prevalent in a poor inner city community is because the people in that community are disproportionately poor. You see, because if you go to a affluent black community, you'll find that the crime rates in that affluent black community are pretty close reflective to the crimes in an affluent white community. But because we are disproportionately poor, people have a tendency in their minds to believe that crime is a black issue. And I've always wondered how it is that this term black on black crime, and then you turn on the news and you're constantly hearing people talk about these so-called inner city, these urban cities where all this crime and stuff is happening. So one day I was having a discussion with somebody, and because that's what he always threw up in my face. Well, look at Chicago and St. Louis and Boston, or not Boston, but Baltimore and Detroit. I said, if you look at the top 100 cities in this country, because he was trying to say it was a Democratic problem. Democrats run the cities, and so I said, look at the top 100 cities in this country as far as population. You'll find that at least 95 of those cities are run by Democrats. Why do you only focus on those 4 or 5 that are going to feed to your agenda? Instead of saying, hey, because Salt Lake City, I think that's a Democratic mayor there. Seattle, Washington, Minneapolis, even our city. Some people that live here might think it's pretty dangerous, but, all you got to do is look at the crime reports, and you'll find that for cities this size, it's a pretty safe city to live in. But you always have to kind of pay attention to what somebody's underlying agenda is.
What the motive is.
Yeah. But one of my favorite quotes from the noted author James Baldwin is to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. What do you think about that?
That's a man that's been through something. I can identify with some of the things that he says. Growing up in this city, being that at one time crossing Broadway, definitely if you crossed 26 was a problem. You cross the bridge, cross Washington Avenue. It was a problem. This city here was just as segregated as any other city.
It was.
It just as segregated as any other city. The rage comes in the unfairness. I'll just take an incident, two similar incidents, two different color young men. You get one young man who happens to be white. He takes a car, and it is joyriding. You get another young man. They make his family press charges against him. Put an F on his report card. A felony is what I'm talking about. And now this man is jaded for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to justify either decision. Why would anybody else make them different? Two young men, same neighborhood, same high school, same crime. One has an opportunity at a future. The other one have to him and ha decide if they will give him a chance at his future. And there is some of the systemic, Lady Justice blind, but she keeps lifting the blindfold up and looking. The scales are supposed to be, the scales of justice supposed to be balanced, but she's pressing her thumb on one side. See, those are the type of things. Another thing that happens, man, is when you get into the schools that you'll find that one student will get more attention and help, be at the same stage. But then the other kid gets labeled as having a learning disability. It's never her having a teaching disability or a fairness of time with the students, spending the lot of time that the student needs. Then that kid ends up on paperwork, and shortly thereafter, because our kids are getting medicated on this Ritalin and whatnot at an outrageous rate.
Yeah.
So you're hanging labels on us. And the one they're forgetting to hang on there is human.
Well, I mean, they can't lay that label on us because this society doesn't look at us as human. I mean, it's hard to, you look at this. I guess one of the things that kind of prompted me to want to have this discussion was this recent thing where that Kyle Rittenhouse or whatever his name is in Kenosha, Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
the boy that killed
Right.
two people, shot the arm off another dude. And you have these celebrities like Rick Schroeder, like Tucker Carlson, like the man, our homie, the man from My Pillow. They contributed and got this boy paid $2 million bail and got him out of jail, Steve. You see, now, to me, I think that if LeBron James even comes on TV and says Black Lives Matter, you got the same people that will encourage and call this boy a patriot for killing somebody.
Tell him to shut up and dribble.
That's right. They will tell LeBron James to shut up and dribble. He's out of his realm to be speaking on social issues. And I mean, so that's where the rage, because I've always felt like I've always had this internal rage. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, here I am.
Identify.
Here I am. I'm half white, right? Grew up, went to a pretty much a predominantly white private high school, most of my high school years. And I always felt like I can't get away with the things that other students get away with. I have some examples I won't even bring up on this thing. But then one of the things that I think really kind of frustrates me is when I see other black people that don't share in my rage. And I understand it's not my right to tell somebody how to feel. I understand that. But for me, it's so frustrating when I see other people that should, and then because I think the operative word in that quote is conscious. See, is conscious black man, black people, because there's so many, black people. Even when I was in corporate America, man, I used to go home sometimes, and I'm not gonna lie. Some of the people I worked with will probably watch this podcast, and if you're taking offense, it's probably intended for you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the reality is I used to go home sometimes frustrated because I could not see how these people can navigate. I couldn't, I mean, like I said, I know you got them quotes out there. People always say, hey, it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with what happens to you that makes things, but how many centuries does this turmoil have to last? How long does a black man have to smile in the face of adversity? How long does a black man have to feel, feel like there's no room for him here?
See, and I can't say that I don't identify and share some of those same thoughts, man. It's just that I've gotten to a point, or I'm trying to reach a point, continuing on a journey, where I no longer take that disgust and get upset and get mad. I start to think, what can I do to change the situation? What can I do to change my altitude? See, our frustration sometimes is because we have too much expectation in somebody else. See, if I lower my expectation of you for me, then I lower my frustration from myself to you. See, now I take that energy and I point it towards something and try to have a laser focus there, because I can't have the disruption or distraction of my mind, because then the things that I need to do, I won't do correctly because my mind will be preoccupied. And I can't be hating on you and trying to do something loving for my family. It ain't gonna mix.
Well, no, I agree with you with that 100%, and it's not, I hope that I didn't bring. It's not that I hate anybody.
I don't.
There's a difference, Steve, in hating and wanting to be loved. You see what I'm saying?
Big difference.
I mean, see, and sometimes I just feel like black people in this country. I mean, when I saw, did you see that press conference with Doc Rivers where he broke down?
You know what? I caught the tail end.
I'm gonna tell you something, Steve. When black men that have had decades of success, they don't even understand the ills of what's going on in the black community anymore. But when that issue of race hits a man, a 55, 60-year-old man, the way it hit him, you just that this is something that's deep rooted. You know that it's something that a good encounter at a grocery store with one person doesn't get rid of, or a good encounter, somebody at work says something nice to you, it doesn't erase that. This is something, man, that is just so deeply rooted that it's gonna take some complete, and I don't even know how to explain it, man, but it's gonna take some complete sacrifice or something from the other side, man. I mean, even an apology, even trying to show and make people believe that, hey, you do have a place in this country. You are, things are we're going to work at trying to, create some kind of equality for everyone. But I don't even see that going. I mean, when I look at this last election, man, and I see that 74 million people voted for Donald Trump, I mean, that just causes so much alarm for me, man. I mean, this is a man that was completely, his whole agenda was to disenfranchise and tear down everyone else. And to have almost half this country say, hey, we want another 4 years of this. I mean, it really has, man. I mean, as much as I've tried to come out of it, optimistically, man, and try to just look at it in a positive way and say, hey, well, we still won the election. I mean, I turn on the news, man, I still see him fighting to try to steal it, try to take the election. Even now, I mean, 3 weeks later, he's still doing what he can to disenfranchise us, man. And we sit and we still smile. I don't understand that smile, man. I do not understand that smile. One day, hopefully, we can as a group, but I don't see it. I don't understand it right now.
Well, I think this is a good wake-up call for people. I think that's why we had as many people come out, because it was a rude awakening to realize that this type of vitriol could just spread across the country like this. And I'm amazed too, Day. I am amazed too. I never thought it would be like this. I never thought that we would go back in times. This feels like before I was born, from what I heard, the tension.
Yeah.
And it's hard to put into words that you have somebody that's supposed to be a leader of a country, man, and they've turned their back on everything. One of the things that popped into my mind as you talking about being conscious, this, that, and the other thing, was the way the Ukrainians did Obama. When he went to go shake their hands, and everybody that was in that line, about 7-8 men, refused to shake Obama's hand.
Why do you think that is? Was it a policy or a race issue?
I would think it was a race issue. They figured none of the people in America respect their president, so neither shall we. And then they got this hot mess to deal with on the world stage, and you see how the leaders are acting now. Just to go back to the Obama story, who was the first one as soon as Russia invaded the Ukraine? Who did they call?
They called Obama?
Yeah, they called U.S. Help Us. Now, this is the same man that you got up here in front of all the cameras and disrespected. Not because he wasn't a worthy president.
But what did Obama do, though?
You know what he did.
Okay, see, and that's the difference, Steve.
He just kept on. He just kept smooth. He smoothly walked past them and acknowledged, kind of nodded his head.
No, what did he do when they asked him for help?
Tried to help him.
Okay, see, now, and that's the difference between, I think, us and other people. See, we are willing to look past people's flaws, and we are willing to look and I mean, we will forgive where others won't forgive. I mean, we have I don't know of any major transgression that blacks have ever committed against other people in this country. We're too busy fighting with ourselves that we can't fight anybody else. So the thing is we have forgiven and forgiven and forgiven. Let me just read this other. I don't mean to keep going to these quotes, but there's another James Baldwin quote, man, that kind of that I kind of like too, man. It says, "I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be free to deal with the pain." Okay, so they, in order to, because I don't think that they even understand the pain that they've inflicted, not just on the people in this country, but I think on people all around the world. And we just continue to ignore it as normal and continue to say, hey, that's just the way it is, and I believe that's why. That's a big part, not completely, but that's a big part of why the condition of black people in this country seems like it's stagnant.
I think it's stagnant because we aren't coalescing. We aren't coming together. See,
I don't know that we have enough power to because even if we come together, there's examples of that, Steve. Black Wall Street, right? There's examples of us coming together.
But you have to understand that none of that came down by our hands. By our doing.
I understand that, but when we came together, they still destroyed it. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. We still live in a society that even if we are working together collectively to try to build up our community, the there's a large part of this society that will do what it can to tear down what we build.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt in that. I mean, you just look at the north side right now, the way they're carving up the streets and everything, and the way they're buying up the homes. That's the intent of that is so we don't return. They're trying to move us out. Just like in Seneca Village, just like Rosewood, just like, Tulsa, Oklahoma. See, once they find out where we're sitting at is prime and they decide that they want it, we're ran off. That is nothing new.
Yeah.
That is nothing new. But, if we have a neighborhood, they're going to run a freeway through it. It's what they've done to most black communities around the United States. They've always disbanded our efforts to come together as community. That don't mean we stop.
Well, do you think that black people in this country as a community will ever get to this place where they don't, they actually feel like they're part of the overall community? I mean, or do you think that this is going to be an uphill battle forever for us?
It's going to be an uphill battle far longer than it should have to be. Been too long to this point. Like you said, every time we get a foothold, town disappears. Run them off. If you start to build a town, they run the railroad around it or right past it as fast as they can. It's always been systematic the way they've broke down the community. You just look at South Minneapolis and North Minneapolis. You remember the stores when we grew up. They're not there. Over half of them are not there. And somebody else owns it if it is, and it's a corner store. You can only find one grocery store over north, and that's on the far north boundary. Like black folks don't eat.
Yeah.
See, now they force you to use public transportation, cabs of some sort, in order to get your groceries, which is spending money in another community and not in your own.
Well, I do, and I know I'm going to kind of go against the grain on this, but I do kind of feel like we have some responsibility in lack of stores and things like that in our community as well. For one thing, I'm sure that, you go to pretty much any city, any community in the country, it's for one thing, it's high risk for a large grocery store to want to invest in their community because, as a community, we don't hold our own people accountable. You see what I'm saying? We sit there and we watch people do things that we know is going to create a problem for us in the future, man. I don't care if it's shoplifting. I mean, and I'll be honest. I have absolutely no problem. You shoplift in front of me, I'm gonna talk to somebody, because I know what happens as a result of you doing these kind of things. And I want my mom or my grandmother or somebody else's grandmother to have this grocery store here
and be able to afford to shop there.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying, that's the only reason, but that is a contributing factor, because as a business person, you're gonna go where the money's good. I mean, I believe that 100%. If people are coming in those stores spending money, Steve, they're gonna put their store in there. But if people are coming in there and committing crimes and making it hostile environment for the people that are in there to spend their good money, that's gonna be a deterrent, man.
Well, this is how I see it. Move the liquor store to the suburbs. Bring the grocery store back to the city.
I would love that too.
See, you can find a liquor store, a pharmacy. What else can you find here? Just satellite clinics. No real hospital to speak of, but a little satellite clinic. Yeah, just think about it. It's the bare minimums for a community.
Yeah, but once again, we have to demand more. I was talking to somebody one time about the concept of separation. And when people say separate, it's not separating from American society as a whole. But I was thinking to myself, like, you have a state like Georgia, that actually swung blue this time. So, and Georgia's always been right on the border. I was thinking, what if the black, and I'm sure, and I've heard other people talk about it too, but what if the black community just flooded 4 or 5 states? You know what I'm saying? Just say, hey, you know what? This is going to be Black America right here. Because the thing is we all know when we come, other people leave, right? Now imagine if we can control the politics in the state. I'm talking state, county, city. I'm talking the entire, from top to bottom. We can control the politics all the way through. So, the things that are listed on the black agenda that you were talking about, like better schools, all of those things, we would actually be controlling it. So, of course, as a black person, I want to see the schools in my community have the same access to resources as the schools in other people's communities.
What do I think would happen? That sounds good. You said control about 4 states?
Yeah.
46 states going to have a problem with that. For the first 2 or 3 months, they're going to love it. Go on, get back. Then they're going to realize that 40% of the economy that your dollar is driving.
Yeah.
And then they're going to say, oh, no, there's enough of them over there right now. There's enough. We still to help pay these taxes. Well, the best way to look at that, man, I think the best
our states would still get access to federal tax, though, because we're paying them.
Yeah, I know all of that, but it's still that money for the proprietors and the different stores, and hair salon. We spend 85% of the money at the beauty supply store, and black don't crack. Black is beautiful, man, but we spend 85% of the money there. Yeah, it's kind of. But anyways, to get back to what I was saying, the best illustration for what you talked about is Derek Bell's book, "Faces at the Bottom of the Well." I read that book. There's a section in there called Afrolantica, about the island that pops up in the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. And scientists run there because they realize that this island is full of minerals, just rich with minerals and wealth. They find out that Caucasians can't breathe there. And the only people that can breathe there are African Americans.
I know, but that's a fantasy, man.
Yeah, but it's the same fantasy you're speaking of, isolated area. So they run. Blacks start running, and they filling out paper. You don't even need no paperwork. Bye, just go. Then they're like, hey, wait a minute. Our economy's going down. The gross national product, GNP, is going down. Hold up, we need them. We need them to keep this country vibrant and keep them going. Then they stop allowing people to leave. Then, unfortunately, this island starts to sink again. And at first, of course, you welcome with open arms. Now there's enough. It starts to revert back to where it was.
Yeah.
So, one thing I don't think people will ever let us isolate the black dollar.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
We need to start supporting our businesses so we can be vibrant within the whole.
Well, I'm on this quote kick today. I'm gonna give you a quote from Harriet
Go
Tubman
ahead, Confucius,
too, man.
man. You quote your behind off. Go on.
The thing is that my concern, even with what I'm talking about, is you have a large percentage of black people that are too invested in the white world, white country, that they couldn't even entertain a thought like that, because they're more afraid of us than they're afraid of the people that have shown them that they will oppress them for 300-400 years. But Harriet Tubman, and I'm sure you know this quote: "I freed 1,000 slaves. I would have freed another 1,000 had they known they were slaves." See, and that's the problem with black people, is we can I don't care where you go, Steve. Most major cities, they have what? They got a Chinatown, where all the Asian restaurants, the stores, they know that part of town is where we go shop, where we go out to eat, where we do the things we do, right? Now the black town is the ghetto. That's where everybody wants to stay away from. I mean, I hear black people all the time say, "Oh man, I ain't never gonna live over north." Now you come from Chicago, Illinois. There's not one part of Minneapolis that's even close to what you've seen in Southside Chicago. And you want to sit here and try to tell me that North Minneapolis, because your standards have changed, because you got up here in this environment where you go to work every day, and Chad might say, "Hey, you want to go to lunch with me?" And you start to believe that Chad is your friend more than Darnell is your friend. You see what I'm saying? All of a sudden, Darnell is kicked to the curb because Chad is saying, "Hey, I want you to go to lunch with me."
Social climber.
But see, Chad, when he gets home in his suburbs, Chad doesn't, the way that you don't know Darnell at work 9 to 5, Chad don't know you 5 to 9 the next day. And that's where black people have to change their mindset and understand that we are the most unique race of people in this country. We bring all of we bring so much of the culture, we bring most of the entertainment, and yet we want to run to people that only want to use us for like we're just a bunch of showmen. We're just a bunch of clowns. And all they want is our entertainment, so that they can go home and turn on the news and say we live like animals.
Just to use your Chad and Darnell thing, usually that cat that's caught in between Chad and Darnell ends up in a limbo. That limbo is somewhere between denial and never going to be accepted.
That's right.
So you end up in this chasm here, man, where this cat thinks he is so much better than what he's left behind, that it's worth reaching, clawing, and crawling towards acceptance.
Yeah.
And you see it all the time. Now, that cat that is Rose, if I may go a little bit back further into your conversation, that cat that is Rose and is making that kind of money, this, that, and the other thing, I don't think he's become... like he's ironclad against what happens. I think now he's in a position where he has to accept more of it. Because if you want to keep this money, you're going to keep your mouth shut. You're going to grin and bear it.
Well, I guess that's why corporate America's never been for me. Because
I mean, think about it.
You know as well as anybody, man, even at work. I'm gonna say because I will never sell my soul for a dollar amount. I don't care if it's $30 an hour, $60 an hour, whatever the case might be, because I got to go home and look at myself, because I will never be that person that's at home hugging the pillow at 8:00 at night because I kept my mouth shut when I know I should have said something.
Dying death every night.
That's right, and that's exactly what happens, man. So. Until we get to a place where we actually can have the conversation with ourselves, and I'm not, and like I said, this is that was just a little thing that I had kind of thought up as far as just overwhelming a couple states, because just changing the political dynamic. See, because if you target states that are historically red, like the Carolinas, like Georgia, like Florida, say you get 5 million black people moving to each of those states before this next election.
Wouldn't all the other states turn red then? Everywhere they left.
Well,
I mean,
depends.
how many electoral votes would these 4 states have? Because they would be just fine putting you down there, changing the electoral votes, man, and just saying, okay, they're off in that corner. We'll shorten the amount of, I mean, this is how systemically this is how things work.
But you're not feeling me though. See, because a state like Minnesota, Steve, what's the black population in this state? What's the black population in this state?
I want to say we're 11%.
I think we're in the state as a whole. I think we're like 7 or 8%.
Okay,
it's below. It's single digits. So what I'm saying, you get a couple 100,000. See, in this state has the longest history of voting blue, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't remember the last president that won Minnesota that wasn't a Democrat. So when you think about it like that, it's got to be thought out.
Okay, think about it like this here. The state of Minnesota is what? 3 million?
No, the state of Minnesota is like almost 6 million.
Okay. But only how many people live in Minneapolis?
Well, the city of Minneapolis, 400.
Yeah, and then St. Paul?
Another almost 3. So
okay.
Yeah, but
all right. And then everything outside of that is mainly what? Once you get to the 3rd tier, 4th tier is what?
Well, it depends. Well, it's 3rd or 4th tier, yeah, but
it's what? No, once you get out there, it's what?
White.
Farmland.
It's white.
It's farmland.
Yes, of course.
Okay, all right.
But Steve,
who's shooting for the farm subsidy?
The vast majority of this population in this state, like 65% of the population in Minnesota is in the 7-county metro area. Now I know 7 counties extends beyond that 3, but of that population,
you got farm area right here in Hennepin County.
Of course.
So as we get onto the outside of the periphery of the city here, most of that's farm.
Well, I know, but Steve, what I'm saying, it would have to be systematic. But the thing is I've always thought of that. Yeah, it would have to be a systematic plan. But imagine if we could create Black Wall Street for 4 states. You get people. We get black doctors, lawyers, black professionals, black bankers, black everything to move into these states. Change the politics in them states where our votes are gonna dictate.
When you bring up politics, you're gonna bring me right back to what I said. Because when you start to vote on the national level, then 4 states are not going to be able to elect a president. Then the country starts to slant against. So you put yourself into a little kind of a hole, man, when you put yourself in that situation. Because you only got 4 states, you get a certain amount of electoral votes, man.
Steve, you're making it sound like only blacks vote certain way.
No, I'm just trying to let you know what is going to happen.
Well,
if you look at the history and you see how things have gone, man, what do you think is going to happen here? Things haven't gotten better for us since we left high school. They've gotten worse.
Okay, so what do you think would happen? Tell me what you think.
I'm telling you. I'm trying to tell you that when you keep saying da-da-da-da-da, cut me off. What I'm telling you, you got 4 states in there. Let's say right now they got 50 electoral votes. Man, by the time they got through, it would be 40. They would mute your voice, and they would just let you sit down there, and you would pick the hurricane, the hurricane area of the country. Here, y'all can have it. I got brothers trying to run up out of New Orleans and all that area right now. Southern Georgia right now.
Yeah, well, no, that's a good point you're making, man. It's just something. All I'm saying is I think that maybe it's time for us to start thinking of an alternative, because I'm just seeing, way too often, man, that there's really not an opportunity for black people to actually live, because like you said, in order for us to live in this society and be somewhat successful, we have to go in and we have to completely transform who we are at the core. You know, we're the only race of people that's asked to do that, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying and don't get me wrong.
And the only reason why I say that Dack changed to the core, man, because our core has been changed. The mind has been changed. The outlook for oneself has changed. So if we have allowed others to change us from the inside, that's where our work begins. So we can see these things outwardly. Just to go back to something you said when we started this conversation out, was Black agenda. Have we ever had one that was very comprehensible? Or in a long time, if we have one that's been comprehensible, and has there been any decent percentage of people involved in it, pushing that agenda forward?
Because Steve, the problem with the Black community is
what does that mean?
Is with the Black community?
Agenda. I know Black community.
What does the agenda mean?
Yeah, what does the agenda mean?
What an agenda is, Steve, is an agenda is saying, hey, these are the things that we would like for you to address. Mm-hmm. Okay. You know, so it can be a whole slew of things. So we didn't even, like, for me, the issue of reparations would be the number one.
Okay.
See, I mean, I believe reparations is probably the number one issue for African Americans. Now, I don't know in what form or how that reparations actually looks, but this country has to make amends by putting something on the plate that says, hey, you know, our greatest sin as a nation was against your ancestors. You know, mm-hmm. The other group of people that had that kind of sin, their situation was repaired up to a certain degree. You know what I'm saying? You know, ours has never been addressed. So, you know, so I don't know. I don't know what it is that we do or what it looks like, but I do believe that on the Black agenda, the issue of compensation in some form has to be part of the conversation.
What I said about reparations is, I said this in front of a group of people, a couple hundred people, mm-hmm. is like, say, baby, I don't want the money right now. Maybe I don't want to be temporarily healthy or temporarily wealthy. I don't want a stimulus check for what's going on. I want a situation where there's money set aside so there's a generational health. Well, healthiness, because usually any money that comes in, you know, it's going to be right back out of our hands, being taxed in another community. But if I can set up some things, or at least get an education for my child, then I'm starting the repair part of the reparations. I'm starting to heal. I'm starting to, you know, any healing takes 3-4 generations. 3-4 generations. So I need to start now for my generational health.
Well, but see, you keep talking about investing in the Black community.
I'm investing in community.
That's what
and it has Black people in it.
Well, Steve, we all. Well, at least I know that I do. I want a nice, diverse community, but the image of a diverse community in America today still has Black people on the bottom rung. You see what I'm saying? I mean, so we have to get to a place where, you know, where we're no longer at least on the bottom rung. So when I say invest in the Black community, I'm saying invest in legitimate businesses that Black owned businesses. Invest in things that are exclusively intended to empower and enrich Black people.
I agree with you. I don't know if you remember way back in the day, man, before we moved buildings and changed offices and everything else. We tried to start up a Black professional group. And the people that came to that meeting, that information meeting, that startup meeting, their first thing was to complain about what somebody had done in management, complained about another coworker, they complained about this, that, and the other thing. And I said, I'm not here for that. What I'm here is to make sure that you guys are finding the right resources so you can put the right feather in your cap, so you can have the right tool in your toolbox, so the next time you go for a job in management or you try to transfer to another center or to another office, you'll have those ducks in a row. Do you know what I heard from one person?
What's that?
What good is that going to do me? I said, I'm thinking to myself, because I don't want to blow the opportunity of bringing people together. I'm thinking about, well, what good is what you've been doing, you?
Well, that's somebody, Steve, that has, I feel, a slave mentality. They can't see the benefit in something like that, because they don't have any aspirations, man.
But I don't want to keep having that conversation because I'm black, because he was white, and then I have to take the brother, sit him down and grab him by both shoulders and say, man, no, it's because you're not prepared.
That's right.
Now, you were in position and you failed to prepare yourself to be in that position. You wanted somebody to give you something, didn't you? You didn't want to earn a thing.
Yeah, well, that's what we do, though, Steve. I mean, like I said, I'm afraid that over, in general. I mean, I even hear so-called black leaders, man. I'm saying the same thing. I'm afraid that we've bought into this whole theory that we have to have this boogeyman, and in this country for 300 years. The boogeyman has been the white man, and it's been the system, and I mean, because once you remove the boogeyman and the lights come on, you have to navigate through life on your own merits. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that, because, and I, like I said, I don't know how to really explain it, but I agree with you. We have to stop thinking that somebody owes us something, that somebody, has to do something, go out of their way to do something for us. And I mean, when I speak about reparations, I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about this country, because this country has benefited from the labor of our ancestors. So I do believe that they owe us something. But as far as individuals, no, I don't ever want to feel like I lean on, I don't care what color a person is. I don't ever want to feel like somebody has to do something for me to move forward.
So you saying that people nowadays are stuck with a 40 acres and a mule mentality?
They are.
Okay. And the reason why I say that, because most people think that we were to be given 40 acres and a mule.
Well,
and how that story really plays out is, let me get 40 acres and work the land until I'm able to pay you for it. And the mules were thrown in because it cost too much money for Sherman to bring them back north on the train. I can bring more men back on the train and just, take these mules. Take them off my hand.
But my only issue with the 40 acres and a mule is the white people were given 160 acres. And then with the same conditions. To go, as long as you homestead the property, you take care of it, grow crops or whatever.
You're talking about the land grab, where they can come and when.
No, that's afterwards.
We talk about go west, young man.
Yes.
As they started heading west, man. A lot of that, the 49ers and all that, this is right before and after the Civil War. They ran out there and put down stakes and stuff, and that's how that 160 came about. That was what they did to the Native Americans, okay? That was when they came in and took their land and run them off, and passed out blankets with smallpox. Even called one of the first germ warfares, General Jeffrey Amherst. You got Amherst, Massachusetts, and Amherst College as well, man. So he was so revered for what he had did as far as chemical and germ warfare, man, that they named cities and schools after him. And I digress. But it's that was them rushing west and taking land from Native Americans. This gentleman's trying to put up borders. Do you know the minute that they signed the Louisiana Purchase, that 1/3 of America was Mexican, Spanish speaking?
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, the country has a history of stymieing, suppressing, pushing out, moving out people, and denying them their place in history as well. It's time for us to decide our direction and be at the table making the decisions with our hands also on the work. Now, see, you said black leader. Most times, and I have to get clarity when you say that. Is it black leader self-appointed, black leader white appointed, or leader that we have rose up, that we have pushed up?
I think most of these black. That's why I usually say so-called, because I think most of them are self-appointed. You know, I think most of them have just decided that. But you know what? You can't really knock them because they
Somebody
did
got to do something.
That's right. They did something that the rest of us are afraid to do. You know, so I always will respect, you know, people that at least, you know, try to step up and step out front and bring about change, man. But did you have anything else you want to close with?
No, I'm cool. I really dig the conversation. I really hope that there's people that, because this is just a wedge. What me and Dack talked about is a small slice of a big pie, and this dialogue is going to have to take place over many more hours, many more days, and many more people involved in the conversation of how do we get to the next tier. We've sat here too long, and we don't seem to be happy. What are we going to do about taking the initiative in our next step and our joy, our happiness? That's going to be up to us. Up to us.
Yeah, it sure is. All right. Well, that will conclude our episode 5, Black Life in America discussion between Steve and I. Once again, if you like our conversations, please go to Facebook, hit like, subscribe, and then somebody says something about ringing a bell. You know, that will give you a notification if anything changes or if we add another episode in. So if you can do those things for us, we'd appreciate it. But we'll go ahead and sign off with that. And thanks again for listening.
Peace out.